How is it that you can make my heart go pitter-patter with just a smile? Pitter-patter. Honestly, the banality is staggering.
Woo, banality! That's poetry, that's romance. That's what happens when a grumpy cowboy finally cracks a grin, unlike some people who think romance is arguing about blubber for 6 months.
We are not relitigating Moby Dick. We are supposed to be discussing Wild for You by Kristen Proby, a book apparently constructed entirely from leftover romance tropes found in a bargain bin.
Bargain bin? This is prime stuff, small town, single dad, a hot nanny age gap. It's the greatest hits. This book is basically the cure for listening to you talk about symbolism. It's comfort food.
Comfort food? The premise is fundamentally insulting. We have Erin Montgomery, heiress to a Seattle tech fortune, hiding out in Bumble, Montana, pretending to be poor because why? Exactly.
She's finding herself. Like that time I found myself working at that petting zoo after Gina left. Sometimes you got to shovel alpaca stuff to figure things out.
She has a trust fund, a presumably enormous one, yet she needs a job as a nanny because her car breaks down. She can't afford an alternator, but she can afford to risk her life and the lives of 2 small children by not mentioning the stalker sending her blood red roses.
Okay, the stalker thing. Yeah, not her best move. My cousin Angie's neighbor, right? Her psycho ex kept sending dead squirrels. You tell people about dead squirrels. Erin, you definitely tell the guy whose kids you're watching. She said she was tired. Tired? Lady, danger doesn't take a nap.
It's pathological irresponsibility disguised as plot necessity. Don't get me started on Remington Wild. The grumpy cowboy. Please. He melts faster than ice cream on asphalt the second Erin bats her eyelashes.
He's supposed to melt. He's been lonely raising 2 kids. Probably has not had a decent night out since his first wife conveniently died in childbirth.
Ah, yes, the conveniently deceased first wife, whom the text explicitly states he never really loved anyway. How extraordinarily fortunate for our plot. It clears the emotional runway for the 25-year-old nanny to land immediately. No turbulence.
What's wrong with that? It's efficient, saves pages. Plus, the nicknames are cute, grumpy, and duck, like Snow White.
It's infantilizing. He calls her Doc because she's happy and clumsy. It makes no sense. It's aggressively saccharine, and she's diagnosing him as grumpy. The clinical insight is overwhelming.
You just hate fun, like you hated that whale.
The whale was a complex literary device, not just oversized seafood. Is this book good? That depends entirely on whether you consider predictability a virtue or an affliction.
It's a virtue. I knew who the stalker was the second he showed up in. It was relaxing. I didn't have to think. My brain gets enough of a workout listening to you.
Some reviewers, presumably adults, claimed it, had me giggling and kicking my feet, kicking their feet. Meanwhile, others called it predictable and boring, very flat characters. Which is it?
It's both. You giggle because it's predictable, like knowing Santa's coming. You kick your feet because the grumpy guy finally kisses the sunshine girl. It's not rocket science, unlike some books about fishing trips gone wrong.
We received a listener email, hypothetically received, asking, is Erin's failure to disclose the stalker situation criminally negligent? Or just peak too stupid to live heroine behavior? What say you?
I say she's lucky she's pretty. And rich, mostly richer. Another email asks, does Rem Tuports once Erin arrives, does he lose all his grumpy edges too fast? Yeah, maybe, but who wants a guy who stays grumpy? My Uncle Tony was always grumpy. Died alone, see?
The pacing is ludicrous. They go from, absolutely cannot act on this attraction due to the inherent power imbalance and professional context, to, let's make out against the barn door, in approximately 30 seconds.
That's called chemistry, sparks, fireworks. You wouldn't know chemistry if it bit you on them. Well, you know. But hey, at least there's no third act breakup. I hate those. Just when things are good, bam, misunderstanding. Drives me nuts. This book skips that. Points for Proby.
If this book were a sandwich, Erin would be a single slice of processed cheese on Wonder Bread, desperately trying to convince everyone it's artisanal sourdough with imported brie.
Rem's a solid cheese steak, but the first wife was like the onions nobody really wanted, and they conveniently fell off, so Erin, the perfect cheese whiz, could slide right in delicious.
That is a uniquely analogy. All right, wrap it up. Rating time. I give Wild for You 1 out of 7 snow white dwarfs, and that one dwarf is dopey, for obvious reasons pertaining to the heroine's decision-making skills.
Harsh, real harsh. I give it a solid 9 out of 10 predictable plot points. It delivered exactly what it promised. A hot cowboy, cute kids, and a happy ending with minimal thinking required sometimes. That's all you need, like a good meatball sub after Nevermind.
Next week, listeners, we delve into the literary abyss with My Roomba, My Lover, a cyber-domestic thriller. Prepare yourselves.
Sounds steamy. Does it vacuum and cuddle? You've been listening to Heartbook Radio. Don't touch that dial, unless it's to turn us up.